We begin with a strong earthquake rattling the north coast of California. The earthquake hit at 12:10 this afternoon. It was centered just off the coast of Humboldt County. It initially sparked concerns of a tsunami, but that was quickly ruled out. The quake was strong enough to do damage in the town of Ferndale. These pictures now just coming in. They show bottles knocked off shelves at Valley Grocery there. People tweeted they felt a strong jolt. Let's get right to meteorologist Paul Heggen with more details on this pretty strong quake, Paul.
Yeah, this is a pretty strong one. Fortunately, it was centered under the ocean instead of directly under land, where it would have had more of an effect. Let's start with the Bay Area perspective so you can kind of get your geographic bearings, and we'll zoom off to the northwest. This is where the strongest quake was centered. That's that 6.2 magnitude quake that occurred just after noon today. But you can see a lot of the aftershocks were centered under land to the south of Eureka, just to the south of Ferndale there. And a lot of people reported feeling that strongest quake had happened just after noon. So the Did You Feel It map shows obviously the strongest reports right around Eureka, but this was felt from Oregon all the way down to the Bay Area and all the way east into Nevada. We have rain chances in the Bay Area's forecast. I'll talk more about that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Paul, thank you. Joining us live now is Sarah Minson with the United States Geological Survey. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we know this is a very seismic area, so what can we expect in terms of aftershocks after this quake?
Well, all earthquakes have aftershocks. Already there have been about 65 magnitude 2.5 and larger aftershocks in the area. But the number of aftershocks decreases exponentially with time. So every moment that we talk about the aftershocks, the number of ones that you would expect goes down.
So we mentioned this struck just about 40 miles off the coast. Would a quake in this area have the potential to trigger a tsunami? Were you surprised there wasn't more of a warning about this?
Well, this is actually a very interesting area. It's called the Triple Junction because there are 3 different faults that come together at this location. One is, this is the very northern end of the San Andreas Fault that we're familiar with in the Bay Area. This is where it ends. Farther north off the coast of Northern California, Oregon, and Washington is the Cascadia subduction zone, where the Juan de Fuca plate off the coast is diving under North America. And then the third piece of the puzzle is to then accommodate the motion between the Juan de Fuca plate and the Pacific plate. There is a third strike subfault, like the San Andreas Fault is, that comes off and goes into the ocean. And so certainly an earthquake on the Cascadia subduction zone would be capable of producing a tsunami because of the vertical motion. You have to have vertical motion to create a tsunami. Horizontal motion, like you have on either the San Andreas Fault or the Mendocino Transform, which is the third fault in the region, doesn't have the vertical motion that you need to excite a tsunami.
And in terms of this being a foreshock to something larger, is it pretty safe to rule that out, or is that still not ruled out at this point?
That's always a very common question after an earthquake. And the answer is that no earthquake really directly makes it more likely to have another big earthquake. Earthquakes, as far as we can tell, are really just they're almost like dominoes falling. And the size of the earthquake is really how many dominoes happen to be lined up to fall sequentially. And having another earthquake happen doesn't necessarily change that all that much. And because it's so rare to have the dominoes lined up exactly right, you have this exponential relationship where for every magnitude 6.2 earthquake like this was, there are 10 magnitude 5.2s, 100 magnitude 4.2s, 1,000 magnitude 3.2s. And that is always true, whether or not you've previously had a big earthquake.
Sure.
Now, because we did just have an earthquake and there were a bunch of aftershocks happening, this is a period of high seismicity, and there are more earthquakes happening. And so the chances of all kinds of earthquakes are a little bit higher right now. But again, you always have that exponential relationship. And of all the earthquakes that could happen, the least likely are always the larger magnitude ones.
Okay. And one last quick question, Sarah. I know we're looking at the damage in that grocery store. I just want to make sure there's no other major damage that we should be seeing in terms of what this earthquake brought.
No. So we have a Did You Feel It website where people can come and they can report their experience of the earthquake. And while there was strong shaking reported in Ferndale and Fortuna and Rio Dell and Hydesville, strong shaking really typically means just what you're seeing in your photos, right? Things being knocked over, possibly things cracking or moving. But especially in California, where we have very strong building codes, something built up to code really should not suffer serious structural damage in an earthquake.
That's always good to see there. All right, Sarah, thank you so much.